Ugh. What is this smell? When I get home late and take a bath, it's always like this. There's a pungent, unpleasant odor lingering all over the bathroom. The likely culprit is probably my husband. I honestly didn't even want to think about what he might be doing in there. I can still tolerate it, but I wonder how our high school daughter feels about it. Just now, I remembered something from when I passed by her recently. She seemed to have a big belly. At that moment, a terrible chill ran through me. Is my daughter's belly getting bigger? Why? Since when? I haven't heard about her having a boyfriend. She would tell me if she had one. Could it be that she is carrying a burden she can't talk about to anyone? Suffering alone with her growing belly? If so, her downcast face, her stooped posture, and her belly's size would all make sense. Who could be responsible for her condition? My mind started racing with the worst imaginations. My name is Jane. I'm 44 years old. I work as a sales manager at a specialty food trading company. I manage several subordinates and work late every day. I have been troubled by my husband, Kevin, for the past few years. He is so lazy and sloppy, which irritates me, a meticulous person. He wasn't like this when we first met through a mutual acquaintance and got married 18 years ago. Time can be cruel, and it's hard not to feel it deeply. Kevin, who works at a staffing agency, always comes home before me but never does any housework. Instead, he pressures our daughter, Mandy, to cook and prepare baths. Every time I come home and encounter such a scene, I make it a point to reprimand him. Kevin. Mandy has to do her school assignments, you know? Take care of the housework yourself. How many times do I have to say this? You can at least make dinner, right? Damn, woman. Housework is women's work. I'm tired from work. That again. Everyone is tired, you know. About 3 years ago, Kevin quit the security company he had been working for without consulting me. Apparently, he didn't get along with his boss. After that, he started working at the current staffing agency, referred by an acquaintance. Take that. I'm making more money than when I was working security. Quitting was the right move. He was overjoyed at that time. However, the job at the staffing agency wasn't easy. There were quotas to increase registrant numbers, and it was quite difficult to meet them. Aside from acquiring new clients, there were many other tasks to do. He was always busy. Being a mid-career hire, he couldn't keep up with his colleagues, who seemed to leave him far behind. Unfortunately, many childish colleagues were at his new workplace. Kevin, who dived into such an environment, became an easy target. He was constantly teased by everyone. A younger senior colleague would order him around, and behind his back, they called him useless, making his days incredibly difficult. Those damn bastards. Just you wait. All they do is mess around like kids. Kevin grew increasingly rough each day. He was always someone who kept things inside. He began to vent the stress accumulated at work at home. Hey, where's the food? I told you to have it ready before I get back. He always yelled at Mandy, our only daughter. From a parent's perspective, she is a very gentle girl. That's probably why he finds it easy to scold her. Kevin is always nagging at Mandy. How many times do I have to tell you to take care of the house before your homework? Huh? Kevin. How many times do I have to tell you not to blame Mandy? Her studies come first, house chores can wait. I've told you this before. Cook your own meals. Shh. It's exactly because you spoil her like that. She's becoming useless. Kevin can't really argue with me. Although we work at different places, I earn significantly more and hold a higher position. It's not that I want to flaunt my authority, but I have to protect our daughter. This pattern where Kevin yells at Mandy, and I defend her and scold him, has become a daily routine in our family. At that time, I couldn't even imagine that he would do such things to our daughter in the future. The change in Kevin became apparent about 2 years ago. It seems that the stress he was facing at work had become significant. He often had bags under his eyes, perhaps from lack of sleep, and he frequently talked to himself. Those damn fools. They're really underestimating me. Just wait, I'll make them regret it. One day, I found something shocking on my husband's head. There was a large bald spot just above his left temple. After I pointed it out, he rushed to the bathroom and yelled out in anger. A bald patch. It's because of those jerks at the office. Damn it. Maybe you should go to the doctor. And maybe talk to your boss about it. The boss is useless too. What's the point in talking to him? Eventually, Kevin expressed his desire to quit the staffing agency. I tried to stop him. Before quitting impulsively, I wanted him to at least find another job. Sending Mandy to a good university, saving for our retirement, and covering our daily expenses. My income alone wouldn't be enough. I couldn't let him quit his job. Each time I pleaded this, Kevin would scratch his head in frustration. What do you want me to do then? Am I supposed to just keep suffering alone? Huh? No one's saying that. Why do you even think that way? If he was being harassed, he should stand up for himself in the proper way. Nowadays, even his company should have a compliance department. It's foolish to just complain without following the proper procedures. Even when I said this, Kevin, always timid outside, seemed unable to do anything. He continued to bring home the stress from work and vented by yelling. It was perhaps better when it was just yelling. Kevin increasingly began to drink a lot. Every weekend, he would gamble on casinos or slots. Needless expenses were piling up, and the atmosphere at home was deteriorating. He also started going out more, and our money kept decreasing. Perhaps it was because I looked anxious. One day, a friend, concerned for me, offered her help. She said she was willing to help with any problems. I needed to have some idea of what and where Kevin was doing things. Grateful for my friend's kind offer, I asked her for a favor. This would later greatly help me and my daughter, though that part of the story is yet to come. On one such weekend night, as I was washing dishes in the kitchen, I heard Kevin's shouting from the living room, followed by the sound of breaking glass and Mandy's scream. When I went to check, the room was a disaster. Broken glass and scattered peanuts were everywhere. In the midst of this, Mandy was cowering and covering her ears while Kevin shouted something at her. He was so drunk his words were slurred, and it was hard to understand him. When Kevin tried to step on Mandy's back, I quickly intervened, holding him back. What are you doing? How could you try to kick your own daughter while drunk? That's despicable. It's her fault. How can I enjoy my drink when she brings her study materials into the living room? It ruins the taste of the alcohol. Huh? Are you listening? For that. I can't believe it. I left Kevin and rushed over to Mandy. It was heartbreaking to see my daughter yelled at and nearly kicked for such an unreasonable reason. What's the big deal about studying in the living room? If the alcohol tastes bad, that's Kevin's problem. I understand he's stressed, but it's wrong to take it out on our daughter. Never do that to Mandy again. Understood. Oh, right. If that's how it is, give me $500 every month then. I'll leave Mandy alone. I've been short on cash lately, you know. Are you trying to extort your wife by using your daughter as leverage? Stop talking nonsense. How far must a person fall to be satisfied? Day by day, my husband seems to become a more disgraceful and pathetic person. His drinking has increased, his spending has become reckless, and he's gradually become uncontrollable. One night, after a year of such troubles, I came home late and immediately grimaced as I entered the bathroom. What is this smell? There was a foul, moldy smell permeating the entire bathroom. Looking at the bathtub, there was also something like a white liquid floating. Unfortunately, this was not the first time I had encountered such an unpleasant situation. Whenever I come home late and try to take a bath, it often ends up like this. I'm fairly certain the cause is my husband. Honestly, I didn't even want to think about what he might be doing in there. I can still endure it, but how must Mandy feel as a high school student? By the way, I just remembered passing by her earlier. She was unnaturally hunched over and sneaked back into her room as if hiding something. She seemed to have a big belly. In that moment, a terrible chill ran through me. Is Mandy's belly getting bigger? Why? Since when? I haven't heard about her having a boyfriend. She would tell me if she had one. Could it be that Mandy is now carrying a worry she can't even tell me about? Watching her belly grow, suffering alone? My quiet daughter enduring terrible treatment from my husband, who uses her to vent his stress while I'm not around. Despite myself, my mind kept imagining horrible things. The pitiful image of my daughter being subdued by her father, unable to raise her voice despite clearly being in distress. I quickly shook my head. I didn't want to believe such a terrifying possibility. But then, what was the cause of Mandy's visibly enlarged belly? I was afraid to find out. Several months later, Mandy unusually complained of feeling unwell. Our daughter is quiet by nature, but she's physically strong. Since she was young, she rarely got sick. I feel kind of feverish. It seems like it. Hey, Mandy, about your belly. As I gently touched her stomach, Mandy turned pale and looked away. Her reaction was definitely not normal. Above all, her symptoms now. They were very similar to the ones I had when I was first pregnant with her. Mandy, please tell me honestly. Who is the father? It's Mom, She couldn't continue her words. She collapsed on the spot and started crying out loud. I decided not to press further and took her to a nearby gynecology clinic. While we were in the waiting room, I tried to find out the father's name. But it was no use. Mandy simply wouldn't answer. She just kept her lips tightly sealed and shook her head. The doctor who examined us was Mr. Ross, a male physician. As he conducted an ultrasound, he said, "She's pregnant." So, it was true. I wondered who the father of the child in Mandy's belly could be. My mind vividly recalled the smell in the bathroom and the white liquid in the bathtub. Could it be that Mandy was impregnated by? When I voiced my dreadful suspicion, Dr. Ross chuckled lightly. Don't worry. Sperm cells can't survive in a bath. They're too heat sensitive. It's impossible. Can someone get pregnant just by sharing the same bath? Maybe you're right, but... Just then, Dr. Ross looked straight at Mandy's face and his eyes widened dramatically. It was like he realized it for the first time. He turned deathly pale. Mandy, too, looked shocked as she faced Dr. Ross directly. It seemed they knew each other. I immediately sensed this and questioned them sternly on the spot. The father is... I think it was this man. Mandy said something unbelievable. Dr. Ross turned even paler. The nurse nearby was visibly shocked. Dr. Ross's breathing became more ragged. Sweat poured down his face. Seemingly unable to deny it any longer, he apologized. I'm so sorry. It was a moment of folly. I apologize. I was stunned. I couldn't believe the father of my daughter's child was the gynecologist. Then, Dr. Ross revealed something even more unbelievable. He said that the one who introduced Mandy to him was none other than my own husband. We just happened to sit next to each other in a bar. He said $500 would be fine for introducing a young girl. I never imagined it would be his daughter. You are the worst. You and my husband both. I'm going to report this to the police. Dr. Ross broke down crying. Afterwards, Mandy told me everything. In my absence, she accidentally spilled some of my husband's prized liquor. Then, My husband flew into a rage, yelling that it was liquor worth $5,000. That's obviously a lie. There's no way he drinks such expensive liquor at home. But it was enough to deceive Mandy, who knew nothing. My husband apparently demanded she compensate him. So, he told you to earn money with your body if you couldn't pay the money. Yes. He said he'd get in touch again once I found a customer. It's unbelievable. Selling his own daughter is the lowest act a person can commit. Dr. Ross's actions with a minor are legally reprehensible. As we left the clinic, I declared that I would officially file charges. Dr. Ross had resigned himself to his fate, ready to atone for his crimes without fleeing. All that was left was that good-for-nothing man. I had to confront him before making the report. I took my pregnant daughter back home, feeling a surge of strong anger I could barely contain. When Mandy and I returned, my husband was sprawled on the living room sofa, lazily drinking again. His bloated, ugly body. His slack face. The more I looked at him, the angrier I got. I kicked the back of the sofa and shouted at him. "You despicable man! What do you think your own daughter is?" Startled, he jolted awake. His face, overgrown with unkempt beard, looked at me in stunned silence. It seemed he guessed everything from Mandy's somber expression. He turned pale. I heard it from Dr. Ross. "You sold Mandy, didn't you?" "No, that's..." I just made Mandy take responsibility. Mandy spilled liquor worth $5,000? Where is such liquor? Show it to me. I was angrier than I had ever been in my life. Yet, at the same time, I felt a chilling calmness. It seems that too much anger can bring a person full circle to calmness. I decided to send Mandy to her room for a while. I didn't want her to witness the confrontation with her father that was about to begin. After Mandy had left the living room, I made my husband kneel on the floor in Siza. I also made sure to set my smartphone camera to video recording mode to preserve the evidence. Confess everything. Tell me what you have done using our daughter. I'm sorry. I really needed the money. So, you sold our daughter. Are you even aware of the terrible thing you've done? Imagine how Mandy must have felt, being sold, deceived, and taken advantage of by a man she didn't like. And on top of that, ending up with an unwanted pregnancy. Unable to tell anyone. Just thinking about how much she must have suffered brings me to tears. I'll never do something like this again. I swear I won't. Of course you shouldn't. Do you think it's acceptable to do it a second or third time? I wish I could make my husband experience the same pain, sorrow, and suffering that our daughter did. But that's practically impossible. Then, the only option left is to punish him. I've told that doctor, Mr. Ross, but you're going to face the law for this. What? The law. Of course, when you do something wrong, you get judged. You're in violation of the Prostitution Prevention Law and the Child Welfare Act. Just so you know, the penalties are severe. My husband trembled with fear. What I said wasn't a threat. The punishment for violating the Prostitution Prevention Law is imprisonment for up to 3 years or a fine up to $1,000. The penalty for violating the Child Welfare Act is imprisonment for up to 10 years or a fine of up to $30,000. If it gets out that you sold our daughter, it will definitely make the news. My husband's name will be all over the national news. Now, confess everything. What did you do with the money you got from selling our daughter? That is, well, why can't you just say it? It's gambling, isn't it? You enjoyed casinos and slots with the money you got from selling our daughter, didn't you? How did you know about that? My husband was astounded, but it wasn't surprising. I had expected as much and had some evidence. A friend of mine followed him and took photos. I paused the video recording on my smartphone to show him some photos. They were of him playing slots and entering casinos. What? How do you have these photos? When did? You didn't notice, did you? A friend of mine followed you and took these photos. She's always worried about me and Mandy. She said it's sad because your husband is no good. No, this is different. I only go to casinos and slots sometimes. Don't lie to me. What do you mean sometimes? It's every week, isn't it? I know my husband has been under a lot of stress at work. He even developed alopecia areata because he was mentally cornered. But using alcohol and gambling as a way to relieve stress is a huge mistake. Especially using the money from selling our daughter for fun, it's beyond the pale. I will also tell your parents in detail about what happened this time. No. Please wait. Don't do that. His parents are both elderly and currently living in a care facility. When we visited them during Easter, they seemed quite frail. Explaining what their son did would shock them tremendously. The thought that they might suffer a severe health episode upon learning their granddaughter was harmed made my husband desperately try to stop me. Please. I'll do anything, just don't tell my dad and mom. Do you think you're in any position to make such an audacious request? Do you not realize how angry I am? Yes, I understand. It's clear to me. My husband apologized. I had no intention of easing my pursuit. I was done with this man and utterly disgusted. Now might be the time to bring up that matter as well. Tell me, is there anything else you're hiding from me? What? No. I don't know what you mean. I'm not hiding anything else. Are you still lying? You're cheating, aren't you? Have you forgotten that I told you my friend has been following you and digging up all sorts of information? What? She was investigating that too. I've been saving this information for when we eventually divorce. My husband has been cheating. The other woman is married too, and it seems she's the wife of an executive at a client company. When I read out the name and details I had noted about her, my husband started shaking violently. No surprise there. The partner of his affair is known to be quite a fearsome person in the industry. I hear Mr. Hill is quite a well-known figure in the industry. He has many connections that shouldn't be made public and is even marked by the police, right? And you went after a woman like that? No, it's not like that. I didn't initiate it. She approached me first, and one thing led to another, and we just ended up in a relationship. Can you stop playing the victim? Even after you knew about her background, you kept going to meet her on your own, didn't you? And you were even getting an allowance each time, right? Or am I wrong? It seemed he had nothing to retort. His affair partner is quite wealthy. Plus, her husband often goes on business trips abroad. Kevin used those opportunities to be called over and continue their affair. Outside, he turns into a coward who can't say no to anyone. That's a bad habit of his. It must have been quite evident this time. For me, it doesn't matter who initiated the affair. I also know where she lives, you know? I'm planning to send a demand letter for compensation through certified mail. I'm going to ask for $20,000, just to start. With such an amount, her husband will notice, for sure. Stop it. If her husband finds out, my life is over. Stop being so selfish. Because of you, Mandy's life has already been ruined a long time ago. Are you ready to take responsibility for that? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He should be apologizing to Mandy. She's still in high school and was forced into an unwanted pregnancy. She might appear quiet, but she's definitely scarred. Those scars are lifelong. No matter what atonement he makes, those scars won't disappear. Later, I called Mandy into the living room and made him apologize to he. Next is the final step. I need to get him to sign the divorce papers I've prepared. When I spread out the divorce papers on the table, he vigorously shook his head, begging not to get divorced. Please. I'll do anything, just not divorce. How am I supposed to live if you abandon me? I even have debts. You finally said it. Right? It's gambling debts, isn't it? How much is it in total? About $15,000. Mandy was speechless. A debt amount that could be deducted from a child. And it was all from gambling. Of course, I had no intention of continuing my marriage with such a worthless person. No matter what you say, I will definitely get a divorce. Oh, and I'm also going to claim compensation for the affair. Compensation. Of course. Let's see. How about $30,000? That's an extraordinarily high amount by any standard. But saying it doesn't cost anything. I decided to shoot high. Kevin, unaware of my true intentions, was just pale. How about it? Want to reduce it a bit? If you sign the divorce papers honestly, I might lower it from $30,000 to $10,000. That's a $20,000 difference. Grateful, right? $20,000. That would indeed be helpful. I suppose he couldn't make a sound judgment anymore. Following my directive, he signed in his section of the divorce papers. The 2 witness sections were already signed by friends. All that's left is to submit it to the city office. Finally, I instructed him to pack his necessary belongings and leave the apartment immediately. What? So, you want me to leave? But where would I go? I don't care where you go. I just don't want to see your face anymore. Mandy feels the same, don't you? You think Dad should just go somewhere else, right? Of course. Dad, just so you know, I will never forget what you made me do and what happened to my body. I will hate you for the rest of my life, okay? I'm so sorry. Mandy, I really was foolish. I apologize. In the end, my husband was sobbing uncontrollably. A husband abandoned by his wife and child. Utterly miserable and pathetic. That very night, he packed his things and left the apartment. Any remaining belongings would be sent to him once he found a new place to live. It was clear he was headed for a miserable life. Later, everything about my ex-husband came out at his company. It seems that it all started when I reported the change in our address and family situation to his HR department. His colleagues asked him probing questions, and eventually, he couldn't keep up his lies. The reason for our divorce, selling our daughter to a doctor, stirred up a lot of trouble at his workplace. He began to be seen with disdain by his colleagues, and faced harsh words calling him a despicable person. There was nothing he could say back because what he did was inexcusable, the lowest of the low. Perhaps it was for the best that the fallout was contained within the company. However, his bad reputation spread to clients, and many frowned upon it. Given that his company dealt with human resources, having a man who sold his daughter was nothing but detrimental. Business dwindled, and the company's profits plummeted. It was clear what had caused it. As a result of an executive meeting, my ex-husband was dismissed and faced claims for damages. He came to tell me this himself, probably hoping to elicit some sympathy by showing how desperate his situation had become. Frankly, it was naive of him and just showed that he didn't understand the depth of mine and Mandy's anger. No matter how pitifully he acted, neither Mandy nor I had any intention of taking him back. I really do feel sorry. I'm in this state. So please, let me stay. What am I supposed to do now? I even have debts. So, you're basically saying you want to rely on me for living expenses? You plan to use whatever you earn to pay off your debts, right? Isn't that it? But if I don't, I'll just be stuck paying off debts forever. How can you be so dependent? You're nothing but a parasite. Take care of your own debts. It's your own fault, isn't it? You got yourself into this mess. Mandy didn't even come out of her room. She absolutely did not want to see her father's face, which was understandable. Honestly, I felt the same way. There were hardly any good memories left of our life together. Whatever good might have existed had been completely overshadowed by the bad. From now on, every time we think of my ex-husband, it will bring pain. It was his responsibility to live with the consequences of his actions, somewhere far away from us. Let me make this clear again. Neither Mandy nor I want to see your face. Do you understand why? That's because I've done nothing but terrible things to you both. Exactly. If you understand that, then promise me. Never show up in front of us again. If you come near us, I'll file for a restraining order, okay? My ex-husband looked like he wanted to say something more, but perhaps realizing it was futile, he slowly turned away, leaving. He was headed towards a bleak future of debt. No one would be there to help him. The more pitiful he looked as he walked away, the more relieved I felt. Later, Dr. Ross received a 2-year suspension of his medical license, and his clinic was closed down. As for my ex-husband, overwhelmed with debts and blame from all sides, I don't know the specifics, but rumors say he's barely scraping by with part-time jobs. We decided to let the life inside Mandy go back to heaven. It was a terribly sad and difficult decision, but it was unavoidable. Neither Mandy nor I were ready to welcome a new life. This whole ordeal seems to have changed her somehow. She appears stronger. Even after being discharged, she continues to attend the same high school, which proves her resilience. I had expected her to want to transfer schools because of the shame and difficulty. It's strange, but I don't feel that embarrassed. I don't want to run away from what I've been through. I want to become strong enough to welcome that child again someday. Mandy. Right. I understand. Your mom will support you with all her strength. This ordeal was hardest on Mandy. Seeing her so positive, I can't afford to be downcast. As I protect my beloved daughter, I vow to become even stronger than before. And with the hardship behind us, I believe that Mandy and I can find even greater happiness going forward. I truly believe that from the bottom of my heart.